For sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Sorry, that was long-winded again.
No, but I appreciate the conversation. This is I think the most I've been able to talk through gentrification and talk about it, because we're not trying to redefine it. I think it has plenty of definitions out there. I think of a metaphor of a wave, right? Most people see a wave at its crest when it's really happening, and that's the same for gentrification. In the neighborhood, people are like, oh, there's these new buildings going up. Well, at this point, we're already so far. So what do we do now?
Yeah, the earthquake happened in the middle of the ocean a long time, like
yeah,
a while back.
Totally,
Yeah.
exactly. So what I tell people is like, look, we have gotten used to there's nothing we can do about gentrification, so we're just sitting on the beach watching the wave instead of figuring out how to surf, figuring out how to build our own boats, figuring out how we need to be out there, leveraging the power of that wave. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, we're just watching.
For sure.
It's like if we were to play, and many conversations with folks who are passionate about gentrification or worried about what it'll do or hoping that it'll change something, they're always playing defense, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is, hey, I need the government to fix this somehow, or this is unfair. And like, hey, yes, it is all of the above, yes, but yes, and right. How do we stop playing defense and start playing offense? We need to be the ones that are proactive and saying, hey, we can do this too.
Yeah.
Because you watch any sport game, any sporting event, any game out there, you can't play defense all game. You got to be on offense every now and then, and that's sort of our like driving force behind what we're trying to do. It's like, sure, not everybody can invest in our fund, but we brought the barrier down to like literally $100. People can invest for $100, and we even think $100. Hey, for the person that's investing $100, them losing that $100 might actually be like more impactful,
yeah.
right? Than the guy that can write a $10,000, $50,000 check. He or she already knows, yeah, kiss my investment goodbye because this is super risky. It could, I may not get my investment
and he
back.
can write it off as a loss.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But the guy or the gal that's doing $100 or $500, we actually take that with more reverence. Like, we're more serious about those folks because it's like, this better be something you don't need next year, right, or the year after. But this is our.
$500 is like you pop 2 tires.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you need like a new transmission. Like $500 to set you back. Again, this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Like, this goes back to like the poverty conversation. Like, I'm fortunate enough that I live above the median statistic where it says like most Americans can't afford a $1,000 medical expense or something like that. So like I live above that, and I'm incredibly grateful and incredibly lucky. However, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden I'm entitled to tell people like, well, you should do it. If I could do it, you could do it.
Totally.
Like, no. You have no idea. Like, the amount of luck that it took for me to even get there, so that now I have the right to be on a moral high horse. That's ridiculous. Because I know what it feels like to have a $150 tire expense because you were driving to work of the job that you already are struggling to get anything out of, and if you work overtime, you're now. Again, this is the revolving door. You work overtime. You are now overextending yourself. So now all of a sudden you can't sleep well. So now all of a sudden you're stressed. So now all of a sudden you're too tired to try to go up and apply back to school. So now you're all of a sudden. Do you know what I'm saying? Like all of a sudden now, it took three little steps for me to for somebody to get put from like I had $150 that I didn't want, that I was just saving, to like now I've been stressed for 9 months.
Yeah.
Because I had and these people were everywhere. It doesn't matter if they just got out of college, or if it's the single mom that's working 2 jobs to feed and get their kids through school. So I completely agree, and I completely understand why the $500 from the person that believes in you. But they're a working class family, why that investment means more to you than it means from the guy that showed up and it's like, all right, I'll write you $10,000 and then like I'll call you back next quarter to see how everything's doing.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? What is the or is there a part of your company that is focused on education?
Yeah, actually, one big thing that we have to recognize is that if our goal is to stir up this conversation of generational wealth among our community,
Yeah.
then that means we're having to take the community as a whole and say, some folks may not know anything about investing. So before they write a $100 check or a $1,000 check, we have to inform them what the risks are, what the expectations are, potential return, potential reward. We have to be very realistic with them and make sure that they understand this is something that don't invest in our fund unless you've capped out your IRA if you're self-employed, or you're capped out your 401k. You're doing everything you can to worry about your retirement. Maybe you also looked at your own life insurance as a policy to make sure your family's taken care of if something were to happen to you. Like, we actually have some checks that we need to check with people before they write that $100 check, because I don't want people to feel as if they're putting the cart before the horse. This is an investment if you have that money to kiss goodbye. But it's also a way for you to be thinking about if it fits within your investment plan, and it's something that you've learned over time as part of something I want to get into. I want to do stocks, or I'm going to say this word, and I never say this word, but it's like, if somehow you're investing in crypto, cool, great, nothing wrong with that. The only problem I have with crypto is that for the retail investor, the folks who can just download the app and click a button, they don't really know what they're getting into sometimes.
Yeah,
and that's scary. And so I would love, don't get me wrong, for people to be like, oh man, Magnolia Fund, I want to invest like that. Sure, it's a couple more steps you got to take before you can invest in what we're doing. But that's the thing out here. Like, the way tech and the way financial models, well, I should say, the signs that are on the street that say, we buy ugly houses, right? Okay. They're actually hoping that people call them who are in a desperate situation.
Of course,
right?
Yeah, that's the whole reason.
A couple years ago, I saw a company that took that same concept, right? Everything I just described about kind of being in a desperate situation, and they kind of techified it, if you will. And I don't want to give them any free credit, right? No free commercials. But what they did is they said, hey, why don't you invest in the hot residential market that is Austin? You can buy a piece of this fund, and we're going to say that whenever this value goes up of this fund, your investment goes up. Now, if you read the fine print, there's no way for you to sell your shares. There's no liquidity. There's an arbitrary determination of how the value goes up. And then you have to think about, what's backing my investment? Like with Magnolia Fund, we're saying very clearly, like, our kitchen needs to make money from food entrepreneurs who are renting it out. That's how we're going to create returns for investors. There's no like stock market aspect to it. Well, with this thing that I saw, and this is before we started the fund, so I kind of learned from this to be like, man, this is kind of predatory. What they were doing is saying, hey, residential person who owns a home in Austin, why don't you sell some of your equity to us? And we'll give you money for it, cash for it. You don't have to pay it back. You stay in your home, you never have to pay it back. But because we're now part
owners of your house, yeah.
We may have first right of refusal, right? Something happens where you can't pay your mortgage, well,
take it.
You take it. That's super predatory, and that's taking that sort of we buy ugly houses and just taking it to the worst level. And when I saw that, I thought, man, I don't know. Luckily, I will say they got bought out. Now it's part of some other fund. But I don't know, like, think about who's trying to sell equity in their home. You think it's people in River Oaks or Westview?
Oh, definitely not.
No. And it's like, you're still preying on people. You're just doing it with a really shiny package, and I don't like that. And so those are some things that I learned in the last 5 years, I would say, that I was like, all right, we don't want to be like that. Right?
When it also feels like exploitation, right? It's predatory and exploitative because of the fact that, like, even if you happen to be a mom and pop business, or if you happen to like have a trade job, you're doing well, you went up to manager, now you're in charge of some stuff, now you're now you work for the city, and you're a trash waste management, or you're a plumber, or whatever it is that you're doing, right? Even if you manage to be a manager now, and you've been there for 15 years and 20 years, and now you make some decent money, because trade jobs make some good money.
Yeah.
So even if you're there and you own your home or this and that, you don't know what equity in your home actually means. You don't know how you can leverage that. You don't know how you can get a loan. You don't know how to refinance and get and do a renovation. You don't know you don't know any of that because that's not what you're taught. That's why when my like to your point, people in Westview and River Oaks aren't selling equity of their home. That's ridiculous. They're like, no, I have money. I can just give you cash for something. You don't need to own part of what I own, right? So it's exploitative because that company knows that there's value in the equity, and then they know that the people don't know the value of their equity and how to use that to leverage it. I'm not saying leverage it in a big way. I'm not saying go get a PPP loan or something like that, right? Like I'm not saying do something, but you do have some power. You could use that equity to invest in something. You could use that equity and try to think about get a small business loan if you all of a sudden you've always had this dream to like blah blah blah, whatever it is. You know what I mean? You do have some power. But most homeowners don't know it because they're too busy going to work, and they have to come back, and they have to, you know what I'm saying?